Hey guys, and welcome to my AP Karma Mid Guide. A bit of background on my experience at Karma is I have around 300 games played, spanning everywhere from Bronze, Elo, all the way up to Diamond. She's simply one of my favorite champions, playing her everywhere. I've taken her bot lane as support, of course, and then mid as a full AP burst mage, top as a AP bruiser, a full tank, and also a really weird but fun Triforce bruiser build. She's very versatile and has such a unique playstyle, making her a blast to take on the Rift. Alright, and let's dive right into Karma's kit. First up, her passive, Gathering Fire. Karma reduces her mantra cooldown by 2, 3, 4 scaling seconds every time she damages an enemy champion with an ability. This is halved for her basic attacks. This is really important in team fights to look for an AoE Q hit, so you can get the maximum use out of this Gathering Fire, and if you are ever able to weave in auto attacks, it can just make your ultimate cooldown non-existent. Alright, and next up we have the Q ability. I'd say the bread and butter of her kit. It does a large AoE damage, and when you use your mantra for your Q, it can have a blast right after it that increases its damage by quite a bit. And with AP mid Karma, this is where 90% of your damage comes from, so it's a really important ability to kind of weave past the tanks and hit the backline with. Alright, and next up is Focus Resolve. It's her W. It's a tether, and after 2 seconds of placing it on a enemy, it roots them in place. So this is great for peeling for your marksman, or for maybe doing a little bit more damage, or just kind of getting those tanks off you. And when you mantra this ability, you get 20% of your missing health, and it scales a bit with AP. And once the root duration is finished, it will heal you again. Now this can be a huge difference. If you're in a team fight and you have your mantra up, you should really look at how much pressure you have on yourself. If you are getting dove by an assassin, you definitely want to either mantra W or E for that protection and not be doing it the mantra Q for more damage. Alright, and next up, her shield Inspire, her E button, is a shield that gives you a bit more movement speed, and can be really good to have this coming out of the mid lane because it is a big hyper carry ADC meta. So always make sure to place it on the squishy that is being focused, or sometimes it's good to place it on your tanks that are looking to engage. One of the best examples would be to place it on a Rammus or a Sejuani, just so they can get that little bit more move speed to get their abilities in on the enemies. Alright, and finally Mantra, which is her ultimate. It empowers all the other abilities that I've already explained thus far, and it is reduced by her passive. So her whole kit relies around this ability. So just make sure that you're getting proper use out of it. If you're landing a lot of your skill shots, you usually can get about 3 to 4 ultimates off in a team fight that can really change the flow of the battle. Alright, and let's get into Karma's runes. Now, I am pretty dead set for mid lane with my primary tree. Summoner Aerie definitely being the best because you can both proc it on the damage from your Q and also proc it for your E's, giving that little bit more shield, that little bit more poke that is really needed after the Karma nerfs. And next, this you should never be taking Monoflow Band. This is what makes AP Karma good again, is the ultimate hat, reducing that cooldown by 15% more, and in combination with your passive reducing the cooldown on your ultimate even more, this just synergizes so well with your kit. I would recommend never using anything else. And also, you can start stacking this at second 1 of your game, since you have your ult at level 1 right at the start. Alright, and the next line we got there, I think that CDR is definitely the most powerful stat on Karma, just because the more spells you can get off in a team fight, the more shields, the more tethers, the more just sustained damage and more protection and CC. It's just really invaluable. So you definitely want to grab Transcendence for that extra 10% CDR. And in the last row, this is the only time where I kind of change up my primary tree, either going Scorch for more early game damage, or doing the Gathering Storm for more scaling. Alright, and on to the secondaries. I'm going to go from order of my favorite to least favorite in the options. First being the Cosmic Insight from the tree over there with Perfect Timing as well. Now this can be very big because you can get a 45% CDR. As I just described, CDR just gives so much power to Karma, and it just synergizes so well with everything in her kit. And you can also grab a Perfect Timing for hard matchups where you're just playing against an assassin mid or a high impact ult like from a Veigar. It can be really helpful. Now sometimes I run Resolve secondary tree if I'm just going up against something that can give you a little bit of trouble, like I don't know, like a Katarina or Fizz. Bone Plating is in a really strong place right now, and it can reduce the damage on those big all-ins that Fizz gives. The second thing I take from that tree is Revitalize, that gives more shielding and healing. So this helps out, giving your E-shields more absorption. And also with the healing from your Mantra W, which helps a lot. And third and finally, the Domination tree. I never personally use it, but Ravenous Hunter can be a bit of a help in some lane matchups if you need even more sustain than what you get from your W. And Zombie Ward to help with vision. Alright, and let's dive into the different items that you should get on Karma. Now, she is a very mana-hungry champion, especially with CDR builds that I think are pretty optimal. So you should be rushing a mana item, whether it be GLP, which I think would be probably not the best of the three. Adds a little bit more catch, but you really lose out on a lot from the other two. Now, the one that I personally use is Ludens, because I like a super strong mid game from Karma, because that's kind of where her strengths lie. And actually, it goes along pretty well with the meta right now with the shorter games. Also, which is a really strong item on Karma, is Archangels. It's in a really good spot right now. It gives the CDR that Karma loves, and it gives her an extra shield, and it just synergizes really well with her kit. Now, Seraphs is a bit more on the defensive side, but if you're in a tough lane matchup, or if they have a lot of bursty assassins or a lot of burst damage on their team, Seraphs can be a really good pick. But Ludens just gives you that one-shot potential you can have in the mid-game with the Spell Pen. So let's dive right into the Spell Pen items. I usually grab the Spell Pen boots right after my first item, and this enables your empowered Q to just chunk squishies out, any squishy out, to like maybe 20-30% HP. So it's always good to rush Spell Pen right after you finish your first item, and then you can go into your second Spell Pen item, which I think is probably AP Karma's second strongest stat. So what some people do is you can just go to the Oblivion Orb, just get that base Spell Pen from that, and you don't have to finish the Morellos. But I would recommend going and finishing off the Morellos second item if they have a really healed heavy team, something like a Vladimir, Soraka team. And let's move on to the defensive. So usually I like to grab one defensive item from this tree. I would be grabbing the Zhonya's. If there's a high impact ult that's getting thrown on me every team fights, like a Fizz throwing his fish out, or a Veigar throwing his ult out, or a Zed, that's a really good pickup. Now, if you have a if they have a really heavy magic damage team, Athene's can be a really good item for Karma just because it synergizes really well with her kit. And if you are struggling even after your first mana item, Abyssal Mask can also be super good if you have a high damage team and they don't need a huge amount of damage output out of you. It can be a really great defensive item for Karma, giving a lot of magic resist and mana back when you take damage, and also that CDR you finish to get that 40%. So everything in this defensive line gives you 10% CDR, so you get 20% for your mana item, and then you're running the Transcendence for an extra 10%, so this finishes up your cap, so you don't have to get those CDR boots, because again, we value Spell Pen really highly here on the AP Karma item builds. Now after you get the one defensive item, or if you're feeling pretty strong and you're skipping the defensive item for now, Rabadon's is really good because she has so many different AP scalings, and it got a big buff, so we gotta abuse it. So if the enemy team is running a lot of magic resist against you, and they have a lot of tanks and you just need to help focus them down, Void Staff can be a really good pickup. And then also we have the Orb, which can be a super fun item when you are snowballing, and it adds that one-shot potential of your Mantra Q on squishies. So say you did the double Spell Pen, you have a Ludens that's doing extra damage, that Orb can just kind of push it over the edge, and I've actually gotten a couple one-shots with it where they're getting hit by both parts of the Q, and that does their entire health bar. Now, one of my favorite parts about Karma's items is she is so diverse with what she can do, and if you have a strong marksman, I definitely recommend looking into getting one of these supportive items. So first, Athene's. It's really easy to stack up the passive with your Mantra Q, or even just your regular Q and the W to get that heal off on your marksman. And then also, I found Zeke's is a great item for Karma mid if you have a really fed team and you just want to help out a little bit, giving a little bit more support, because your ult has a really low cooldown, and that's how you proc Zeke's, and it gives a slow around you, so it also makes kiting a little bit easier, and it gives a very big burn to your to your marksman. And finally, you can go Ardent Censer, pretty self-explanatory. It's a good item. It's not as good as it was, but it's still you can apply it to your entire team with the Mantra E, so it is a great pickup for Karma. Alright, and let's talk a bit about some of the Karma matchups you're going to see in the mid lane. So I'm going to go over 3 different archetypes. First being the long range mages, which is my personal favorite to go up against, because Karma's empowered Q usually will outtrade their long distance poke just because it has really high base damages, and they are usually really squishy, and you're putting your shield on when you are trading them. So I would say that these are very low threat to you, and a great time to pick Karma mid. Now, the good thing about Karma is she's really easy to play, has a simplistic play style, one of those easy to play but hard to master champions. So if you ever are struggling against a champion like Vel'Koz or like Anivia, Karma can be a really safe pickup for you. Alright, and secondly, let's go into mid-range mages. Now, I find these can be kind of the hardest champions to deal with, especially Cassiopeia, because she has very, very consistent damage, where you are more of a burst mage, and your Q is like 4 or 5 second cooldown, where she can just be spamming E's on you while you can only Q, tether, and run away. So I'd say these are a bit more of the harder matchups for you, but you can still do really good things with your long distance Q poke on them. You just really need to pick and choose your spots, and don't get caught up in these extended trades where you're kind of in mid-range. And make sure if they end up catching you, say with the Rise route, to save your Mantra W just so you can get a bit of that healing back and just get a bit of relief from their just really strong, consistent damage. Alright, and next is Assassins. Now, this can be a bit of a tricky matchup. I'd say it's the second hardest of the 3. So, with Karma, you really need to pick and choose where you're using your mantras against these guys. You should be doing the Mantra W against them when they're using their jump in skill, like the Katarina shampooing in with her E, or the Zed shadowing in with his W, or the Kassadin doing his level 6 ult into you, where he gets right on top of you. So just be really cognizant of your ult, and if you used it to, say, do some long distance poke, you really should be staying at your max Q range to just try and poke them out of lane. So just kind of abuse your range against these matchups, and I think you'll do pretty well. I do usually take Exhaust just for a bit of added protection against these guys, and it skills really well in late game team fights when they're trying to delete your marksman. So yeah, those are the 3 different matchups I like to go over with Karma. Alright, and that will wrap up my AP Karma mid guide. I want to say thank you all for the support recently, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm looking at actually to do another guide for my tank Karma, and also maybe for my AP80 Bruiser Karma builds. Comment if you'd like to watch something like that. I want to give a special thank out to one of my subscribers, Despairing Leonardo, who is always discussing Karma builds and rune setups in my videos, and it is much appreciated feedback that has actually helped my Karma game out a lot as well. And that is it for me. If you liked the content, please like and subscribe, and take it easy.